Thank you all for coming. We're so fortunate today to have our colleagues at some local and some more distant, actually in Philadelphia, record enhancer post-Bacc programs. And many of us have met and we've talked a little bit about what this means, but tonight we're really going to hear from some heavy hitter post-Bacc programs. We've got Georgetown and Temple and Drexel, and our colleague from Johns Hopkins is in traffic, but will be here soon, to really help you understand a little bit more about who can be helped by a record enhancer program, what are the differences in the kinds of programs that you might look at, you know, a master's program versus a certificate program, what does it all mean, and application timelines, and all those kinds of questions that you might have. So I'm not going to take up too much more time because it took me a while to just get into the room and get myself going. But I'm so very grateful to have Adam Myers from Georgetown, and we have Laura Mangano from Drexel, and then Grace Hirschman from Temple, and soon we'll have Alex Tan from Johns Hopkins. And they're going to talk with you, and then this is really a great opportunity for you to interact with them. Ask your questions, hopefully from the floor for the benefit of the group, but then at the end I think we'll have them sort of go to areas of the room where they can speak with you specifically about their programs if you want to do a little bit of follow-up. So without further ado, we'll start with Adam.
Okay, well thanks everybody for coming. Let me just ask a question. How many of you are seniors or post-grads, post-Baccs? Okay, good. And how many are freshmen or sophomore? Okay, so you folks have lots of time to not worry about record enhancement, but I think you can pick up a lot on what you need to do to get to this point and maybe have a straight shot to medical school. But I guess I have a couple messages, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details about our programs until we get into that discussion and you ask questions. But my first message is that most students don't go to medical school straight out of college, and that most people who don't get into medical school and dreamed of it don't realize that dream because they stop trying at some point. That getting into medical school isn't a finish line that has a fixed place or a fixed date. If you aspire to be a physician, you should be working hard at it now. If you reach that point where you've graduated and you don't see your way clear to that finish line, then what you need to do is get good advice from Wendy and others, and talk to programs and find out, you know, what are the pieces that you need to put into place to make it to medical school. And it's going to be different for each one of you. For some people it may be academic record enhancement, which is the main thing we're going to be talking about, I think. For others it might be retaking the MCAT, which could be a part of some programs. It could be getting more clinical and volunteer experience. There's all kinds of things that you can do to enhance your ability to enter a medical school besides simply going into a program. You know, we're not here to sell you these programs as the answer that fits everybody. So let me just tell you quickly about Georgetown and George Mason. So in 1975, Georgetown started the first of the special master's programs, and it was kind of a novel concept at that time. You put students through medical school courses as part of a graduate program and allow students the opportunity to show that they can do well at that level. So it gave students an opportunity to enhance their academic record in a real medical school setting. And that type of program, we have the special master's program at Georgetown. We also have a joint program with George Mason and Manassas. It's a smaller program where you get more individual attention. Those types of programs, I think, essentially are for people who have all the pieces in place besides, say, the academic record. There's lots of folks who get tied up in athletics and social things, causes, and come up to this graduation event and then all of a sudden you don't have the GPA. And it's really hard to fix an undergraduate GPA. By the time you're a junior or senior, you know, you have 90 to 120 credits and you get all A's one semester and, you know, you raise your GPA 0.1 or 0.2 or whatever. So those are the folks these programs, at least in my view, are aimed at, these special master's programs. You need to have the prerequisites already. You need to have a decent MCAT to work with. You need to have the appropriate volunteer and clinical activities. Then you can go and enhance your academic record. If those things, the other things are what's lacking, we would tell you, well, what you need to do is, you know, focus on those things. On the board, I have the curriculum. It's in the handouts back there. You can pick those up. So I'm not going to go through it, but basically the special master's program at either place consists of medical and graduate courses. It's a very intense one-year experience that leads to an MS degree. It's harder than anything these students have ever done before, but it has to be that way because it's an opportunity to show that you can make it. Now, I want to talk real quickly about a couple other programs that we do. We have a certificate program at the Mason Manassas campus. It's a little bit different. It's called the ABS certificate. There's a handout for that too. It's for people who are maybe not quite at that point of a special master's student. Maybe they have an MCAT that they need to work on. Maybe they're not sure. Do I want to go to medical school or dental school or veterinary school? So it's an opportunity to take upper level, graduate level biomedical sciences courses and work on MCATs or DATs or GREs while you're in the program. We have prep courses built into the program. And if you do well in the certificate, you can continue on at Georgetown and get an MS and complete that whole thing, the certificate and an MS in physiology in 12 months. So those are the three main record-enhancing programs. I'll mention one more, and Wendy knows about this, and she can, you know, maybe refer you to me or tell you a little bit about this particular program. We have something called the GEMS program. And the GEMS program is a certificate program for disadvantaged, underrepresented students who are likely to continue on at Georgetown School of Medicine. You have to have applied to medical school already once. You can apply to the GEMS program in that same cycle. And we have about an 85% continuation rate out of that program into Georgetown School of Medicine. So if you believe that you fit those criteria that I mentioned, and you also have a dedication, this is required too, to serving underrepresented, disadvantaged peoples in the future, that's a small select group of students that we recruit for that program. And it's a great program. I teach in it every Monday from 1 to 2:30, and you know, see these people who come in with MCATs and GPAs way below the typical medical school entry standards because they're typically disadvantaged students who didn't go to the best high schools or whatever, turn into great medical students and great physicians. So I can talk to you individually about that program as well. So I congratulate you on coming out to hear more about these programs, and I'll be looking forward to answering your questions and talking to individuals later.
So next up is Grace.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to hear about our programs. Just to give you a little bit of background about me and the program that I represent. I've been involved in medical education for close to 30 years. Started out as the administrative director of a residency training program in general surgery. I have always worked with surgeons. Did that for about 12 years, and the vice chair of the Department of Surgery was appointed dean for admissions for that medical school. Asked me to join him, and I worked with him for 13 years as director of admissions. Fast forward to a more recently, in 2008, Temple School of Medicine decided to launch a post-baccalaureate program specifically for Temple School of Medicine to attract students to our campus. At the time, I had decided that I was going to look for a different career. And when I was approached, I thought this would be an ideal opportunity to continue to work with a professional population and still help them achieve their goals getting into medical school. So I know what it takes to get into medical school, I know what it takes to thrive in medical school, and also how to get the residency of your choice. So many variables. But so the program is new. It's in its 5th year. And we have 2 cohorts. We have the career changers who take all of the prerequisites down on the main campus with undergraduate students. It's a very small cohort, 15 students. We travel together, all in the same lectures, same labs. The ages range from 23 up to and including last year we had a mother of 3, former architect who was 40 years old and she's now a first-year medical student. The other cohort is the academic enhancer cohort. It's a little larger. We have 40 students in that program. So the academic enhancer students are enrolled in graduate level courses taught by the faculty at the medical school, not the same classes as medical students, but the same faculty. In the fall semester, they get biochemistry, physiology, immunology, and microbiology. In the spring semester, they have dental anatomy. They take it with the dental students, so it's neck and above. They have pharmacology, and a course that is a hybrid that I developed called Medical Topics in Pharmacology, where I invite clinicians to present to the post-bac students some of the therapies used that sort of coincide with the pharmacologic lectures that they're being taught. The program for the academic enhancers is 9 months in length. It ends in April. While they're enrolled in the program, fall and spring, MCAT prep is integrated into both semesters. We also offer clinical shadowing, which is integrated into the semester. And this year we introduced clinical research, 1 day a week for 2 hours in the ER. It's called Trauma Stories. What makes this program unique is that all of these students are given a conditional acceptance when they're admitted to the program. So applicants to the program need to show that they can sustain a consistent high level of academic achievement. So we're looking for candidates who have an overall GPA of 3.3. They need just a little push to get into medical school. If you've taken the MCAT, although it's not required, we're looking for an MCAT not below 26, because to get into the medical school and achieve that acceptance, again, as I said, we have MCAT prep, it's threaded throughout the fall and the spring semester. You must achieve a 30 in the current MCAT with no one score below an 8. The success rate of the program is phenomenal. Again, as I said, the program was launched to attract this non-traditional type of student to our institution. And with that, we really emphasize working as a team, being invested in each other's success. It's a non-competitive atmosphere. The only competition is that you impose on yourself, which is certainly understandable. Our success rate has been 96%. The only area that candidates typically stumble on is the MCAT. As far as the GPA, as I said, the faculty works so close with you. Everyone achieves the GPA. And that doesn't mean it's a watered down curriculum or anything like that, but you'll find when you go to professional school, they teach you what you need to learn. And so they're teaching you and telling you, you need to learn this, you need to know this. And if you do what you need to do, you're going to pass the courses. I think that's it. I covered the GPA. Oh, the application is now open. www.temple.edu/medicine/PPP, pre-medical post-bac program.
And next up is
Thank you.
Drexel.
Hello, thank you for having me here tonight. Beautiful campus. So Drexel, we're located in Philadelphia. We also have a campus in Sacramento, California. So some of the programs I'm going to speak about are also offered in Sacramento. So what I've listed on my slide here are the different types of post-bac programs that run out of the office. So within Drexel University College of Medicine, we have our Office of Professional Studies in the Health Sciences. And we have about 26 programs that are delivered out of the office I work in, and several different types of post-baccalaureate programs. So depending on your academic history, you know, I might be able to help you with one of our programs. You don't have to talk to my colleagues. All right, we all play nice. So let's start with the first program. So the first one I have here is the Medical Science Preparatory Program. This is a graduate program. It's a one-year certificate program. This is the program for applicants who have never taken the MCAT or who have taken the MCAT but do not have a competitive score for application to U.S. medical schools, and that's MD or DO schools. So the graduate level program, it starts in August, ends in May, offers graduate level science courses in the biological sciences. So you get to have physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, and an anatomy course. And there's also a course called Community Dimensions of Medicine, which is a course where the students actually do 4 hours of community volunteer service per week for the semester. We do, as Adam has already said, you know, we expect the students who are coming into our enhancement programs to have already explored medicine, you've done your research, you know that this is the right career for you, you have shadowing and other clinical types of experiences. But this is also just to continue on that path and to further enhance that experience for you. There's a lab techniques course in there. And then we have 2 undergraduate science courses. So one is called Advanced Topics in Chemistry, the other one is Advanced Topics in Physics. Those are undergraduate courses, but they're very rigorous courses. They have been included in the curriculum to help the students with the physical science section of the MCAT. So because the courses that you're taking in the program are of the biological sciences, you know, those courses themselves are going to further enhance what you've already learned in your general biology courses to, again, help with the improvement of the MCAT in the biological science section. So these advanced topics in chemistry and advanced topics in physics courses have also been incorporated into the curriculum to help you with your physical science section of the MCAT. There's also an MCAT prep course. So our program has been around since the 1980s and has evolved over the years. We've had our MCAT course taught by our own program students, but we've also in the past have used exam crackers to teach the course to the students. We are currently having Princeton Review teach the course to our students. Whether it was taught by our own students or exam crackers or Princeton Review, there's not a big, huge difference amongst the performance of our students when they came in and when they leave with an MCAT. All of the teaching that has been done for the MCAT course has been successful in having students increase their MCATs. On average, it's about a 4 to a 6 point increase every year. But we've had students, so the students who come into the program, on average, they have, well, the range is about a 17 to a 26 on the MCAT. So a lot of the students who actually come in every year, you know, sometimes we have students scoring in the 30s. So it's just pretty impressive when somebody comes into the program with a score between 17 and 26, and then they're so happy and elated because they got a 39 on their MCAT. So a lot of it is what a student is willing to put into, you know, their studies and taking that course and maybe modifying what they've done in the past. So it's a one-year certificate program. The students are not applying to medical school while they're in the program. They're going to apply after the program because they're going to sit for the MCAT after they complete the one-year certificate program. So we accept about, this year we accepted 90 students into that program. We have maybe, I don't know, maybe 60% of the students every year who return to continue on into the next year of the program. So the way I have it on the slide there is I have it indented. The second year of the MSP program is the Master of Biological Science program. And this is an optional year. You don't have to continue on. The students who don't continue on would be the students who, you know, came into the program carrying a pretty high GPA and then have succeeded academically within the program as well. And then they achieved, you know, their score of 30 or above on the MCAT. Those students are very successful with applying directly to medical school without continuing on for a second year. So a lot of the times those students will go out and find employment so they can, you know, pay back their student loans that they've acquired. So the students that do return for the Master of Biological Science, so now you're in the second year of the program where you're earning your Master of Science degree. In that program, it's kind of hard to explain, but you're doing the IMS program. So I'm going to talk next about the IMS program. So MBS program students and IMS students are taking the exact same curriculum. So the IMS program is the Interdepartmental Medical Science Program. That program has been in existence since 1981. It is one of the special master's programs. The first year of IMS is the certificate program. For the students who remain for the second year, that's where they'll earn their Master of Science degree. So it's the degree program for 2 years. Again, it's not a commitment at the start. Students will decide at the end of their first year if they want to continue on for the second year or not. So in our IMS program, the students are taking the exact same courses as our first year medical school students. They also take the same quizzes, same exams, and they're graded based upon the performance of our med school class. So the courses that they're taking are the first year basic science courses, which include a biochemistry course, that's cell biology and microanatomy, medical physiology, medical nutrition, medical immunology, medical neuroscience. So those are the 6 courses that they take. And then there's also a bioethics course that is taught by the dean of the program. So that's the curriculum for the IMS program. So what happens is our students in the medical school, they don't receive letter grades in the medical school. They're on a pass-fail basis, and there's a range for the pass and fail. So for our IMS students, you know, we can't give our students a pass-fail grade because that's not going to mean a lot to the medical schools when they're trying to evaluate you as a candidate for admission. So for the exams, the mean of the medical school class will determine the letter grade of a B for our IMS and MBS program students. So the goal of our students is to achieve the mean of the med school class on these exams and quizzes, or better. And then those applicants are very strong candidates to medical schools. The students who come into the IMS program, some of them are applying while they're doing the program, but another large cohort, they're waiting to apply to medical school until they complete the IMS program. And again, it depends on individual students' credentials coming into the program. Should they wait the year to apply, or should they apply, you know, while they're in the program? We actually, during the admissions process, conduct telephone interviews, and at that time we discuss with the candidates that we are interviewing, what's their plan? What do you think is the best plan for you for applying to medical school? And then we'll tell you if we think that that's a good plan for you, or do we recommend that you wait the year to apply. For the students who are in the IMS and MBS program, the program starts in August, it ends at the end of May. And in the fall semester, in December, when the grades, your courses are finished, you have your grades. For the students who have earned a grade of B or better in all of those fall courses, they receive a guaranteed interview with Drexel Medical School. So the interviews are conducted in January, and the students will then find out at some point during that semester whether they've received the acceptance to start medical school that August. In order to be a candidate, not only is it the B's and better on your fall courses, but you do have to have an MCAT score of 999 for a 27, or be 30 with nothing less than an 7 in any one section. That's it for now for the IMS program. The third program I have listed, again, it's the 1-year certificate program, and then the second year is for the students who stay will work towards earning their Master of Science degree. It's the Drexel Pathway to Medical School. Now this program started in about 2002, roughly around there, I don't remember exactly. It was created in order to help increase the diversity of the med school class. So this is a program that is meant for the disadvantaged applicant, as Adam had mentioned, similar to one of the programs that he offers in his school. So the students in the DPMS program, they do not have to have applied to medical school. They can apply directly to the DPMS program. If they receive an acceptance to the DPMS program, they are also given a conditional acceptance, and the students have to earn a minimum 3.0 GPA out of the 1-year DPMS program. And then there's also 2 tracks. During admissions, the students who are accepted into the program are either put into track 1 or track 2. So track 1 is for students who do not have the MCAT score that the medical school wants them to have at a minimum, which is a 7 in the verbal and the 8s in the physical and biological sciences. So you need a 7, 8, 8. So for the students that do not have that, they are put into this track 1 where they will take an MCAT course throughout the year. It's the same MCAT course that we offer to our MSP program students. And at the end of the year, they will sit for the MCAT in the hopes of achieving the 7, 8, 8 or better. And if they do that, plus earn their 3.0, they will then retain their acceptance and start medical school in the fall. Now, there's the other group of students who go into track 2. These students already have at least a 7 in the verbal and 8s in the sciences upon admissions. So those students will take the medical immunology course that is offered to the IMS and MBS program students on a pass-fail basis. The curriculum of the DPMS program is actually a hybrid of both our MSP and the IMS program. So the students are taking out of the IMS program, which are the med school courses, they're taking the medical biochemistry and the medical physiology. And then out of the MSP programs, they're taking the graduate courses, the anatomy course, and then the pharmacology course. So if the students earn that 3.0, and depending if they're in the track for the MCAT, they earn that, then they start medical school in that fall. For the students that do not achieve that, they can continue on for a second year, and that's where they enter the DPMS 2 program. So during the second year, they'll take the remaining medical school courses that they did not take during their first year, plus some more graduate courses in order to work towards earning their Master of Science degree. And then the last program is our Interdisciplinary Health Sciences program, which is the certificate program with the second year earning the Master of Science degree. The IHS program has evolved over the years. It's been around for about 4 years now. It helps students who want to gain admittance into medical schools But a large focus of the program is also to introduce students into other healthcare professions that they might decide, down the road that, sparks their interest, and it might be something that's a better fit for them than going into medical school. So out of the IHS, MIHS programs, a lot of the students go to medical school, but we've also had students go to physician assistant programs, nurse practitioner programs, physical therapy. Some of them have gone off to naturopathic medicine. We've had people go to a dental school. Actually, a large number of our students who want dental school will go into the IHS program because the curriculum is a little bit more flexible. The IHS program is mostly made up of elective courses. So the pre-dental students get to take some courses that might be more applicable for entry into dental schools. We've had students go into podiatry school. Runs the gamut. So it's the IHS program and the MIHS program. The curriculum is pretty individualized per each student. The program director actually meets with each student to discuss your goals and your backup plans to come up with a curriculum, because most of the courses are elective courses. And the spring semester of the IHS program starting this year will offer an MCAT prep course as well. When the program was first developed, it wasn't to help students gain entry into medical schools, but the program has sort of evolved that way because most of the people that are applying to the program want medical school. So we decided also to include this year an MCAT prep course because the program has been helping students gain entry into medical schools. So in a nutshell, those are the programs that we offer.
So while we wait for Alex, and when she gets here, we'll let her talk about Hopkins as well. I had a few questions that I wanted to make sure that got asked, and then, of course, I want you all to ask your questions as well, if that's okay. And maybe if the question is sort of, the answer is standard, then one of you will field it and we'll move on, or if it's something that's different for everyone, then we'll do it that way. So I wanted to start with how financing is handled for students who enter post-bac programs, the difference between how you would finance a master's versus a certificate program, are loans available for either type of program, and a little bit about the cost. I don't know, if, Adam, if you want to start since you were,
okay, sure.
It's been a while since you got a chance.
So graduate student loans are the way that most students go if they're not able to get family or self-support. The financial aid office at Georgetown works with students and comes up with a budget, and they'll fund the tuition and living expenses. We have a very limited number of partial scholarships. I wouldn't count on getting one, but I'll just throw that out there that we do have a few limited scholarships. What was the rest of the question?
So you actually are a good example of this because you have a certificate program and a master's program. Can certificate students get student loans as well? Right,
so that's why a lot of these things have official certificates now, because certificates confer the ability to get student loans.
Okay.
And tuition, I have to say, is expensive in these programs. The teaching of medical courses is expensive. The special master's program at Georgetown costs nearly as much as the tuition for Georgetown School of Medicine for 1 year. It's, I believe, don't hold me to this, but in the upper 40s. The same program at Mason is in the upper 30s. At our new site, we're in our third year of that program. The certificate program is in the middle to upper 20s at Mason. So there's a range of tuitions, and I wouldn't let that drive your choice. By the time you get through medical school, you're going to owe somebody a lot of money, and there's lots of ways to finance that, and there's lots of ways by serving underserved communities, by getting scholarships through the military, et cetera, that you can either get loan forgiveness or finance your education.
Do you all want to?
Yeah, and I think, as Adam said, why more and more programs are going to the master level or the certificate levels, because post-bac programs, there really is a cap of $12,500 on what you can borrow, and that's really dependent upon how much you borrowed as an undergrad. So most of our students take out loans. As far as our tuition, we have an in-state tuition of $25,000, out-of-state tuition $30,000. It's a lot of money when you add on 4 more years of medical school. You're provided with a budget. We have a full-time financial aid coordinator who is the coordinator for the medical school. So, yeah, but again, as Adam said, I wouldn't let that drive your decision. As far as scholarships, we have no scholarships on the way in. But what we do have, for those students that complete the program successfully, and that's 96% of them, we do have scholarships at that time. So I'm pleased to say that.
The only caveat I would want to add is for our programs at Drexel University, the certificate, in order to earn your certificate, the minimum GPA is a 2.75. And in order to receive your degree, you must have at least a 3.0 GPA. Where the financial aid and the federal aid comes into play is depending on what your GPA is. So if the students do not earn, depending on which program, either the 2.75 or the 3.0, they might not be funded for federal aid. There is an appeal process a student would have to go through if they had extenuating circumstances which prohibited them from performing at the academic level that they should have been. So I just want you to be aware of that, because during our admissions process, we have to be pretty, I don't know what the word is, it is competitive when you're applying, because we also need to make sure that the students who we're accepting into the program have the indication in their application that they're going to be able to perform at the level to be a successful student and earn that certificate or earn that degree.
So Alex is here.
Hi, Alex.
Sorry, you had the terrible traffic. We had just actually finished going through the description of each of the programs, and I had just asked my first question about how do you finance a post-bac program. But if you want, if you're prepared to jump into your program description.
I've been thinking about nothing else for the last
We'll go there, then we'll go there, and then we'll continue with the questions.
Well, the good news is, first of all, let me say thank you for coming on time, unlike myself. And the good news is that the Hopkins HSI program, the Health Science Intensive program, is located in Rockville. So if I had been driving from Rockville, I would have been here on time. But instead I was in Baltimore, where I live with my young son who's sick. So, so this is just a very brief information slide, which my colleagues, I'm sure, showed a version of. Very simply, it's new. We just accepted our first cohort of students. Just this last summer was the first incoming, so unfortunately I can't answer any questions about statistics of them going through the application process. This coming summer will be our first cycle with my students going through the process. We're very eager, and we're working on those applications and personal statements right now. They're very excited about it. So I think it will go well, but I have no numbers for you. But the students who participate in the HSI program get a master's degree. It's an MS in biotechnology. This is a long-standing degree at Johns Hopkins through the Rockville campus program that many, many students have been using for many, many years as a way to gain science expertise, to get into a laboratory environment and to be in industry. So we have kind of redone it and given it somewhat of a makeover to much more appropriately be tailored to the pre-med audience. And we don't do, at this point, we don't do pre-dental or pre-anything else. We're just focusing on medicine, making sure that we get it absolutely right before we move on to the other fields. So the reason I'm mentioning this about this degree being long-standing is that these are not all brand new classes that we're trying out for the first time. They're established classes that students have been using for a long time to get into biotechnology. So the good news is that, God forbid, you should not be successful in your application to medical school. You do have a degree that actually has some value, and many people are getting just that degree on purpose to go into the workforce and be competitive there. The things that we've changed about it, is that it's a at night kind of program, and this program is not. So this is a 1 year, nice and tight. You can finish it in 12 months. It's tailored that way. You take basically 3 courses in the fall, 3 courses in the summer, 3 courses in the fall, 1 course over the January intersession, 3 courses in the spring, and you were done by May. Enter the application process in May. And I think in general, since my colleagues have already gone through all of theirs, you're going to see a lot of similarities. This is like shopping for anything. There's a lot of things that are similar and very few things that are different. And what I would encourage you to do, undoubtedly, as my colleagues have done, is to really think about the program that is going to allow you to be successful. It's not that this program is any better than anybody else's program. It's that my program is going to be good for perhaps somebody in this room, whereas you might not be as successful in another, and vice versa. Entering the HSI program might not allow you to be as successful as you might be if you went to another program. So it's really about fit, and I'm sure that you hear this in the meetings that you guys have about pre-med. When you're choosing medical schools, when you're choosing undergrads, when you're choosing anything, there is a certain amount of that is about making sure that you are a good candidate for medical schools, for post-bac programs, for whatever, but then there's also a segment that is about being a good candidate for that program and what they're trying to do. So here's what we're trying to do. In designing the curriculum for this program, what I wanted to do is address something that's been a frustration for me for a long time. A lot of post-bac programs are really great about providing you with really nice, rigorous science classes. That's pretty standard for post-bac programs. Many, many programs do that. There are a lot of different ways of doing it, but there are many programs that do that and do it very well. I felt like the students that I was working with were having difficulty taking those science courses and taking the volunteering they were doing and kind of putting those together in the way that medical schools want to see. So we were thinking about how can we connect the dots and circle all the way around, which you guys are supposed to be doing, but not everybody does that. And you guys are working so hard, sometimes it's hard to look up and see that you can connect the dots all the way around. So that's why we're calling it a 360 curriculum. So not only do you take 7 science courses, 3 of them are required, 4 of them are electives. If you want to know what courses they are, I could answer that question for you. You can just check the website. In addition to this, we're adding 3 additional courses that are required that are specific towards allowing students an opportunity to practice and work on a skill set that is specific to medicine. It's one of those things that if you look in the data, medical schools are looking for it. That is building and leading teams. Medicine is no longer a cowboy field. It's a team sport these days. So you have to know how to be a member of a team and then also lead that team when you have a lot of people who are very qualified to be leaders. And how to do that in a way that moves forward the care of individual patients. So we have a course on that, building and leading teams in healthcare. We also have another course called Communications for Healthcare Professionals. Communication is incredibly important. I'm sure all of you guys know that. What you might not be thinking about is how is the communication different between how you might communicate with a colleague versus a patient versus a child versus a refugee versus someone who is new to the United States versus someone who is from a different culture. How do you do that? And how do you do it in a way that doesn't make your patients feel shamed or worried or reluctant or whatever? So it's not just, yeah, well, I can talk to people, sure I can. It's about the nuance of that communication. And then the last one we're very excited about, psychosocial determinants of health and implications on diagnostics. This is to tie in the science of the diagnostics. Okay, so you have this set of criteria, you make a decision on what a disease is, great, but there's much more to medicine than just doing that. It's not about saying, yay, I figured out the case study, this person has cancer. There's a difference between how you treat a patient, literally treat, not how you are kind to them, between someone who is a 65-year-old white male living an affluent lifestyle versus an 80-year-old refugee who just came to this country versus someone who is diabetic versus someone who has a history of drug abuse versus a small child who also has other issues. Excuse me. So this is a course that's designed to kind of bring you all the way around. And then in addition to that, the advising, which is the gray in the middle, the advising is designed to pick up all the pieces and make sure that you see where all the dots are connected between the stuff that you were doing out in the real world all the way around to your courses, all the way to the Psych-Soc capstone course. So that's what we're going for. There are some bumps in the road, like there always are. It's a new program, so we're working those out. But so far, it's turned out really well, and we're really excited about that. One thing that's new for us that's also very exciting is I'm happy to say that we have a new partnership that we're developing with the National Cancer Institute. As is kind of a Hopkins tradition, I wanted to be able to offer my students research opportunities. It's very much about what Hopkins is well known for. And I wanted to see if I could find a way to help my students get those experiences as well with the new program. And so I've been working on this partnership to allow that to be available to my students. And then I just have some stats here. We're doing rolling admissions, which means the application is open now, and we're accepting applications until the class is filled. And then the recommended GPA minimum is a 3.0, and although we are requiring a standardized test score, and that means any standardized test, SAT, ACT, MCAT if you've taken it is fine, LSAT is fine, GMAT is fine, whatever. No Cosmo exams, but other than that, any standardized exam is fine. And we are not accepting or rejecting students based on the standardized test score. It is not about you hitting a line. That is not what it's about. It's about trying to figure out, as an admissions committee, what the challenges are that you face and whether this program is an appropriate program for us to help you get where you need to go. And that goes for the GPA as well. It is a GPA minimum because, as I'm sure perhaps my colleagues have spoken about, and what I heard, the tail end of what I heard very much speaks to this. Realistically, if you have a 1.0 GPA, frankly, there's very little that any of us can do to make you a competitive candidate for medical school. So there does have to be a minimum. And for medical schools, unfortunately, that minimum kind of circles around the 3.0. Is it possible to get into medical school with a GPA lower than a 3.0? Absolutely. Which is why it's a recommended GPA minimum, not a required. But you have to understand that if you don't have that 3.0, not only are you up against some competitive challenges with respect to post-bac programs, but you're under some substantial challenges with respect to medical schools. So you have to show that you're worth worth accepting to the program, that you're going to be able to make it all the way to the end, and that it's not going to be frustrating for everybody involved. And we do have an essay in the application. It's called Different This Time. This is your opportunity to specifically address why it's not going to be like it was whenever you got whatever you got. That's making you look for those back programs. Don't do that in your personal statement. That's not what your personal statement is for. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So a lot of what I had on the list that I sent out to you all, you were nice enough to incorporate into your answers. So I maybe just have maybe a couple of more that I wonder if you could talk about, and then we'll go to the students. Grace, maybe you could answer what linkages are, because I think that's a term that people hear and maybe they don't understand.
I'd be happy to. We don't have linkages at Temple. We have a conditional acceptance, but there are many post-bac programs, master's programs that have linkages with medical schools, and that typically means that they have an agreement that spells out what they're looking for in their applicants, and they're willing to consider students that are enrolled in your particular program. For instance, medical school A may say, I'm looking for candidates who are academic enhancers, are in your program, they started with a GPA of this, they had an SAT of this, and if they achieve science GPA in your program and an MCAT benchmark, we will accept them into our medical school. So if that's the case, the program director will nominate students that are in her program or his program that meet that criteria. The medical school then reviews those candidates and will decide which of them they want to interview. and an in-person interview is typically required. They go for an interview, A likes B, say yes, this is fine, you continue on in that program. And if you achieve the grade and the MCAT, you start at that medical school without a gap year. So as Laura mentioned, some of their programs are a year long. You would start as soon as the program ends in May, you would start medical school that August if that's their start date. So that's a linkage. So it's an official, unofficial acceptance.
Can I add something to that? Sure. We don't have any linkages for the HSI program, but the Career Changer program, which is a different kind of program, does have, we have 13 linkages. And I just want to add something to this because I think that students get, they get an impression about what is being promised to them from linkages that I think is too encouraging. It's more encouraging than it should be. So in contrast to Temple's conditional accept, which is great and amazing, linkages are basically just skipping the gap year. That's really the only point of doing a linkage. And there's actually no advantage to doing a linkage. So what happens is that you put your application in the winter, which is the end of the application cycle. So essentially you're putting your application in with the tail end of the prior cycle, if that makes sense. And you are getting reviewed basically up against everyone else who has applied to that institution. So it's not that they reserve a set number of seats and that, you know, if I like you and I'm recommending you, then they'll say, oh, sure. That's not what happens. The competition is very steep for linkages.
So I'd like to, maybe that's been your experience, but at the school I worked at, we had linkages with institutions, and those seats were set aside.
Okay.
So that is, it's a contract. You only apply to that. So part of the linkage is, you know, I'm setting aside a seat for you, and you are guaranteeing me that you're not going to apply anywhere else.
Okay.
So that's the contract.
So then I guess the solution would be if you are banking on linkages or you're particularly interested in linkages, then you want to ask those questions of the institutions that you're applying to. You want to really thoroughly understand what those agreements are.
Absolutely, and most programs that have linkages will list the medical schools that they have the linkage with. So if you want to go to Penn, you know, look at programs, and again, for those of you that are looking at post-bac programs, the AAMC website is a wonderful resource. There's 142 post-bac programs out there. That's both Career Changer and Academic Enhancers. And they list this. They will list the linkages.
I'm going to just ask one more question, and then I'll let you guys have at it. We know that there's going to be some changes to the MCAT that are coming very soon. And I wonder, I know that the students at this time are supposed to have all of their prerequisites done before they enter a record enhancer post-bac program. Will that still be true when psych and social are in the mix for the MCAT and when biochemistry is in the mix? Are you going to incorporate that? I heard a little bit of that in what you all are doing, I think, but I don't know if you all can talk about that a little bit.
So, you know, at Temple, of course, we are looking at that. In fact, we have a curriculum review committee again next week, and we are looking at introducing the psych and social component pretty much as a lecture and seminar series, and looking at mapping what we offer in the biochemistry graduate course to what's being tested in the new MCAT. Of course, for career changers, it's a much more involved process.
So at Georgetown, we don't anticipate building that component into our programs. If we find that there are a lot of students who have that need, we'll reconsider. We're assuming that people come with the prerequisites that also set them up to take the MCATs, because we require MCATs for application to either one of our two special master's programs. So they presumably, by the time that MCAT becomes required, the students will have those new prerequisites.
At Drexel, I mean, all of the programs offer a biochemistry course, so if they did not have it upon entering the program, they would receive it in the program. As far as the psych-soc, we're not looking at incorporating it into our enhancement programs. We do have a career changer post-bac program, so we are going to incorporate such a course. So I think during admissions, we're going to have to look a little bit closer at the transcripts to make sure they also have, some of the undergrad courses that would provide them with the knowledge that they need to do well on the MCAT. And certainly at Drexel University, there are those courses that could help them at the undergrad level. So our students could take them in addition to the curriculum courses here.
And the other thing I'll add, because we do have the integrated MCAT prep, that's something that I'm working very closely with our MCAT vendor to make sure that it's covered should we have people in the enhancer program that didn't have that, especially since we'll be entering students for the 2014 class who will then matriculate immediately into the medical school. So if we need it for next year, we're looking at customizing our MCAT program so that we can include that material.
All right, you guys, have at it. Anybody have some questions that they've been storing up?
Since we're using like the V-Collect for all our recommendation letters and our transcript and everything, do you all accept if we send it through the V-Collect?
So we have something called Send Us Stuff for our application. If you have another electronic mechanism, you just need to alert us to that, and we will definitely utilize it.
We haven't had any trouble. We get a lot of applications from University of Maryland students, and we use Apply Yourself, which is, I assume, similar, but
Right.
one way or another it works out.
It works.
I'm not sure how it's working, but
Mike Grunberg.
Yeah, ours is actually embedded in our application. We have an online application. We tell you how to access the Send Us Stuff component where you can upload letters of recommendation, resumes, MCAT, SAT, ACT, whatever it is that you need to upload.
Yeah, our system is Apply Yourself also. And it works perfectly fine, and if it doesn't, you just have your recommenders send them via email. Most of those systems will email those. That's fine. We've got people too in the office, so it is possible to have a middleman to help you out.
We're a little bit more archaic. We don't have anything that you guys are talking
Ours
about.
is this year, and I love it.
So most of the letters come in through the U.S. mail or some service. We do accept electronic letters from the letter writers as long as it comes from a .edu address. If they're faculty or other, verification of a legitimate email address, it needs to be on company letterhead, institution letterhead with a signature. An interfolio is a huge way of how we receive a lot of the letters.
But collecting them through V-Collect is the way to go, and then
Yes.
we get them where they're going.
Yeah,
We do.
great.
Hi, my name is Natsana. I believe both my questions apply to Ms. Grace, Dr. Grace. So can we have any prereqs fulfilled before applying to a career changer?
For a career changer, so the career changer program is basically for individuals who have not had any science. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have math, or maybe one course in chemistry. But if you've had all the courses, then that's not the program.
Okay, who should we talk to if, like, say we've had like 3 or 4, maybe not including math? Should we call before we apply?
You should look at the website.
Yeah.
Ours will accept if it's roughly half of the courses, the Hopkins career changer.
I saw that. I didn't know about the template.
Yeah.
Post back before today. And I have one other question.
So it's also not only that you've had the courses, but how did you perform in the courses? So if you're looking at a career changer retaking your prerequisites, does that mean your grade needs to be improved? And that's why you want to do a career changer program?
Well, no, I haven't fulfilled all my prereqs, and
Okay.
and I just want to be more competitive overall, and go to a career changer. And it's like, where's the threshold?
Well,
Yes.
I want to piggyback off of that
Okay.
though. So, I mean, the AAMC website is great, but it's categorized by state, and I think it's hard to figure out unless you look on each link there what the program is. If you go to the Syracuse website, so www.syr.edu, and in their search engine, you just do post-baccalaureate programs, it takes you to their site where they have it categorized by enhancement type programs or programs for disadvantaged applicants or the career changer programs. And there are some programs that consider themselves career changer programs. So at Drexel, our program is a part-time career changer program. We only offer the basic science courses. So you could come to our program depending on what you have, but that would be a discussion you and I would have, because if you could take these courses somewhere else that you can complete it in 1 year, whereas with me you might have to complete it in 2 years, I wouldn't recommend that for you. I'd recommend another program. I used to also work at Duquesne University. So their Career Changer Post-Bac program allows the students to already have had some of the courses, because their students can also take some upper division courses. So say you never took, let's say you took biology, but you didn't take chemistry. You could come in and take the chemistry during that first year. You don't want to take biology again, but there might be some upper division biological sciences courses that you could take. So, I mean, there's a program that I would look at, and I think, as Alex said, you need to click on. But Syracuse website, I like the way it's categorized, and it'll take you to the links to their web pages so you can see what they offer in their curriculum.
So another thing that you might look at, the program that I directed before the Hopkins program was the UC Berkeley program, and the Academic Enhancer program and the Career Changer program were a la carte, and they were under the same roof, which meant that students could basically take whatever courses they wanted, and both lower division as well as the upper division were available to students, and you could kind of like, you took the biology but you didn't take the chemistry, you just take some upper division, and while you're doing the chemistry you can kind of build your own schedule. So you might be able to, the reason I'm mentioning that is that if the program were less structured and had a more robust, say, upper division course load available, then that would lend itself to doing kind of somewhere in between, like the Career Changer plus a little bit of record enhancer on top of that, versus a very structured program where this is what we are offering and that's kind of it. Or, ours, we have both, but they're on different campuses. The Career Changer program is on Homewood campus, and the record enhancer is at Rockville campus, so, they're geographically separated, so you can't take them on the same campus. So that doesn't really help you with the search engine, but I mean, that's kind of what you would be, I think, looking for, something that kind of split the two.
All right. And there are so many programs out there. I mean, ours is structured for a reason, because we have a conditional accept. So people that are enrolled in the Career Changer program, certainly wouldn't be fair to mix that group who are all non-science majors with someone that's had science. They have to achieve a 3.5, they have to get a 30. So it's definitely only for career changers. There are many programs even closer than the UC Berkeley program that'll allow you to shop for what you want.
So there's programs at Maryland, there's programs
Right.
at Georgetown, at American University locally,
Right.
at the institutions represented by the panel. My personal advice would be, it's a good idea to go to a program as opposed to taking courses part-time, and it's a good idea to take all those courses at the same four-year school if you can, and to take them at a place that has a program specifically because you'll get advice, because what you're hearing is that there's a lot of complexity to what you want to do, and you need people to guide you through that and make sure that you're doing the right thing.
Just to clarify, so when you're saying make sure that you take it at your own four-year university, like they have a science in the evening program here, and so would that constitute as taking it here, or are you meaning like stay extra if you need to as an undergraduate and complete the requisites that way?
Well, that's certainly one strategy, and a lot of students do that. If it's possible to do it in 1 year, personally, I think it's an okay way to do it. taking courses in extension and evening programs, I think you need to be careful and get somebody's advice based on your overall record. You know, the problem is medical schools will accept credits from junior colleges, from extension, et cetera. I mean, Berkeley Extension is a great program, but you need somebody to look at what you want to do and sort of say, yes, I think that'll meet your goals, because the rest of your record isn't strong enough. Maybe you need to take them at a really rigorous place.
All at once. I agree. I think our program, because it's spread out in part-time, is not for everybody. It's not for people who also need to enhance. It's only for people who already have a good academic record and just need the classes.
I mean, what medical schools really want to see, and we've talked about this throughout the panel, they want to see that you are able to complete a rigorous course of academic work in a condensed period of time and achieving a high level of academic standard. So the rigor of the institution, the time it takes you to do it, are all really important. Not because, one school is better than the other, or they want to see that you can handle the volume of medical school. I mean, we often say this, the hardest thing about medical school is getting in. They want to make sure that you can do it. I mean, the failure rate or the attrition rate for medical schools, U.S. medical schools, is really low, and that's the reason. They don't want to admit anyone that they feel cannot really thrive.
You want to think about it from the medical school's perspective. You want to think, if I were sitting on that at that table, on that panel, and I was looking at this paper application, what would worry me the most, right? Because they don't know you, they don't know what you're capable of, they haven't promised your mother anything, they don't have to give you any false anything, right? So they're just trying to find candidates who are going to be able to handle it, who are going to stay there, who are not going to drive them crazy, who are going to get to the end, who are going to become amazing doctors and potential donors, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you were offsetting poor academic coursework in a pretty typical undergraduate environment when you're taking quite a few classes, et cetera, because you're taking one class at a time, it's very easy for someone to say, well, but she's only taking one class at a time, and it's at a junior college, and we know that junior colleges are less rigorous than a four-year institution, so that doesn't mean anything. So you want to think about it in the sense of, how can I make sure that whatever I spend my effort and my time doing, there isn't going to be somebody who's going to say, well, that doesn't mean anything, because you don't want to do anything that doesn't mean something. Which I think comes back to the concept of advising. We need to make sure that you're working with someone who's going to look at your record and say, don't do this, this is what you need to do, this is what the red flags are, this is what you're up against, this is how you can combat that, and you can have that conversation from someone who has been through hundreds or thousands of application processes with other students. So you only have to do it once. I have to hand it to you guys. I mean, this is difficult. I did not apply to medical school, thank God. I have to go through stress every year with my anxious students, and I don't get to do anything but tell them what to do. But and it's not my life that's on the line, of course, which helps to some extent, but it's very, very stressful. So of course you don't want to do any redundant steps, you don't want to do anything that you don't have to do, and you don't want anything that you are spending the time and the effort and the money to do being worthless.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that, don't apply until you're absolutely ready for medical school. Be honest with yourself. Know where your weakest link is. If your weakest link is your science GPA, then you need to enter a program that will increase your science GPA. And if you enter a program, you need to be prepared to, hone your time management skills and hone your study skills, because you're getting one chance to prove yourself.
Any others? Okay.
So if we're let's say we're on the fringe, between getting applying med school, going to post-bac, is it round and pound, or not good to apply to some post-grad programs and some med school at the same time?
Nope. How would you go?
We do both.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the academic enhancer.
Right.
I mean, there are so many, so you definitely want to meet with your pre-med advisor. Make sure that the schools that you're applying to are well within your range. You could have a reach school, you know, don't forget your state school. And then if you're on these post-bac websites, you know, all of our programs are open now and accepting applications. But truthfully, for the Career Enhancer program, Temple doesn't start interviewing until after February, because we know at that point, every medical school in the country has to have released the number of accepts for every seat in their school. That doesn't mean that they're full, it just means they've released that number. And so if you haven't heard from a medical school for an interview by February, you need to start thinking, what am I going to do next year? Actually, I would think by January. And at least start at that point applying to post-bac programs.
So I thought it would be useful to just talk for a second about what kind of credentials people come into our programs and perhaps yours with, because it relates to this thing about applying to medical school. So both of the master's programs I'm representing, the joint program with Mason and the one in DC at Georgetown, our average GPA is around 3.3 undergraduate cumulative GPA, and the science is maybe a hair less than that. And the average MCAT is 31. So there's ranges around those numbers, of course. So we have students who have a 27 MCAT, and we have students who have, 38 MCATs. We have students with 3.0, we have students with 3.8 GPAs. But you can see that, at least for those two programs, those students aren't far from having the credentials for medical school. So most of them will have applied, like you just heard, and then they have, as a backup plan, applied to an enhancement program, one of our enhancement programs, to do during what otherwise would be another round of applications, and what kind of job do I get, what do I do? We do encourage the students who enter those two programs to apply as they come into our programs again, because our experience is that 50–60% of the students are able to go directly from our programs into medical school. So I would say that 85–90% of our students have an active AMCAS application while they're in our program. The certificate program, a lot of those students haven't applied, and a lot of them won't apply while they're in our program. It's more for students who are, maybe a couple steps away from that. So, whether you apply to medical school or not doesn't have anything to do with whether you'll be accepted into one of our programs, but just because of the nature of our applicant pools, a lot of them in the special master's program have an active application, both when they apply to us and when they start with us.
So if any of you have applied or are applying, you should, and you want to apply to the HSI program, you should contact me or contact the applying people, because we will waive a lot of your application if you just send us your AMCAS application, because obviously your AMCAS application has most of that stuff in it. And I don't care if your letters say, we would like to recommend this person for medical school. Only about, I think, maybe 60–65% of our current class has applied to medical school before, but because we don't require the MCAT, we're also capturing a population that feels that they are weak in various areas and thus have not applied to medical school, which is roughly that other 35–40% of students. But our stats are, with the exception of the MCAT, because not everyone's taken it, so I don't have that stat, our stats are pretty close.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify, we accept GREs as well, but our GRE requirements are pretty rigorous. I don't know the new GRE scales, but on the old scale, we were requiring 650 in each section, so that would be predictive of a pretty high MCAT.
Did you have a question? Somebody back behind you? No?
Yeah, I have a question. My question was about, I guess if you are a part of the one-year program, would it be recommended, or I guess, upon if you did have a job and you're working?
I would not recommend it. We strongly encourage students not to do that, and that's part of that is also my personal preference. I find that a lot of students that end up being good candidates for record enhancer programs are those that have a very understandable, very reasonable reason why they didn't perform better in school. Rather than, it's not my fault, it was the teachers I had, which by the way is not a good excuse for not doing well in your classes. And those really come down to a couple of things. A really, really awful semester because something really awful happened in your life. More common than that are people who participate in varsity sports, particularly multi-season varsity sports. That's a pretty common reason why students do less well in their courses. And then the last one is working while they're in school. So I strongly discourage students from working while they're in classes because I don't feel the need to help you repeat history. I have found that the students that try to work while they're carrying a full graduate load and also volunteering and also working on their application and also doing all these other things is a recipe for disaster. So as much as I understand the driving force to doing that, I think that you should, if you need to work for a year before you do a post-bac, you should just take the bullet and do that. Because the worst thing to do would be to dig yourself a deeper hole by doing a one-year post-bac that you can't handle because you're working at the same time, and you just keep digging yourself down further and further, and your dreams become further and further away. That's sad for everybody.
Yes, I would definitely ditto that, because any student who tried to hold a job while they did our program failed the program. The programs are too rigorous to be able to hold down any kind of a job.
Same here. We don't recommend working. Take a year, as Amy said, save your money.
Yeah, I think for the special master's program, it's actually unthinkable that you would be working while you're doing that kind of program. Our certificate program at Mason, it's conceivable for someone to have a small part-time job, but I really wouldn't recommend that either, especially if you're doing the MCAT prep that's built into the program.
Let's see if maybe you have one more question, and then we'll maybe do maybe 10 minutes, whatever you guys want to do in terms of maybe doing little conversations with people who want to talk to you specifically. Anybody have one more question for the group? We want to move out to. All right. Well, thank you all. This was really, really great. I just want to say as we close. Just how much I really appreciate your wisdom. I mean, it's a great resource to have you all here. And I really, I handpick people who I know are really thoughtful. These are programs that have a conscience, and you heard them say it. They don't want to bring in people that they don't see some evidence that they're going to be able to be successful. And so when you think about post-bac programs, I really want you to be looking for programs that have that kind of conscience and are discerning so that they know that you're ready for that step, and so you can really get to the next place. So
And the thing is, if you call us and our program isn't for you, we're more than happy to recommend programs that are. There's so many. I mean, there's a program out there for everyone. I truly believe that.
All right, well, thank you. So how do you want to do this? So Adam, you had your stuff over there.
Yeah, so I'll go in the back corner.